couple meetings you had. Try to make it fast for you. Again, you'll see the first page is our B budget and C budget. Our B budget, again, we came in flat like requested. It should be noted that, you know, our officers are working very hard. We also added 3 officers to the commission, and, you know, thank you very much. And we were actually, in the last 5 years, we're actually down 25%, which is, I thought, an outstanding job on the officer's part and where we're going with it. Again, our revenues are going to be up a little bit. We're projecting we're doing really well. Last year we hit like 98%, which most average years we were hitting between 50 and 55%. So I upped them up just a little bit, but I don't think they're unreachable. So we're working on that, and it seems like we're on track to actually be what we're projecting for our revenues. The second page, as you can see, is it's one request and then 2 adjustments. Currently, we only have 1 supervisor, director, then we have 1 supervisor for all the POs. So what we want to do is make another supervisor position so we can split the POs, because we have 2 different crews that are working, and it would help with the management end of it, split it so it doesn't all fall on 1 supervisor. So we're not asking for a new position. We're just going to move a current probation officer to a supervised probation officer. And also in that period of time when we're doing that, there will be, again, what we've run across with across the board is compression. And so I would be moving the current supervisor up where she should be at, and then also the supervisor of administration move them up to where they should be at. I know a lot of this is probably going to possibly be covered under the wage study that was going on with it. But the main request was the second supervisor position, but we need to move the current supervisor up because of this way the scale works. And then also in the wage study, which is a new thing starting this July, is the intermediate and advanced certificates that are being brought forward by post that several of our officers will be qualified for. So what I did is I didn't come up with anything new. I went to the sheriff's office and said, when they move up their certificate levels, how do you do it? And it's usually, I think it was between 4 and 4.5%. So I just made it 3% across the board for each position that they would move up. This was provided to Sylvia back during the wage study, and she was going to look at it. We'd be one of the first counties to implement such programs, so it's hard to compare out there because it's just starting in July. So without the certificate pay, but just for the 3 positions to be adjusted, it would be a total increase of $22,198 at this time. So the main thing is the extra supervisor position and then moving and fixing the 2 compression areas.
Okay.
So your revenue is going to increase by $10,000 and your A budget by $22,000. So essentially it's a $12,000 increase.
That's what we're trying to shoot for, yes, ma'am.
But that does not include a certificate program.
No, because Sylvia was going to see what was out there for comparison wise. And so I'm hoping that comes forward on the wage study. It was impossible to figure out.
Right.
I just couldn't figure it out because I don't know what the wage study is coming in. So if I don't know what that's coming in, I couldn't give you the 3%.
Sure. Okay, so if you're covered in the wage study, then that's fine. We don't need to address that right now because we'll address that on June 14th.
Okay.
That's right.
So basically, mostly is just fixing the compression for the 2 positions, the supervisor positions, and then adding that 1 supervisor position.
And that comes out to the $22,000?
$22,198.
Right.
Hopefully, our revenue's going up to would be just $12,000.
Right.
Okay.
I'm fine right now. I do have a question for Sylvia because I want to make sure that our supervisor to people ratio and those kinds of things, I want to know kind of what best practice is and stuff like that. So
Best practices that I've come across when I was a chief of police and everything is if you have 5 to 7 people, that's what you can effectively organize and work with. If you're above that, you're kind of patchworking it and you're
That's
not, you're not being able to supervise them properly.
right. So then how many per each in your department?
It would be 5 and 4.
Okay.
So it would be an ideal so they could watch them and work with them.
Right.
Yeah, I'm okay with this, but again, for me, it always comes back to the wage study.
Right.
I know we have to address the compression issue, and that's separate, but with the level of increase that I think Sylvia is contemplating that we would potentially approve, it's going to be probably, relatively speaking, fairly substantial. So what I'm thinking is, I'm okay with this for now.
Okay.
But I have to weigh it against the wage study, because that may solve some of the compression issues, so I'm okay for now. Leslie?
Yeah, same.
Bill?
Supervisor position.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I just want to talk to Sylvia. I know that you found your best practice, but
Right.
4 is quite a bit from 7. So I
Right.
just want to make sure that we're not doing this too early, because I think eventually you're going to need another PO
Yeah, the way
position.
the numbers are and, the calls, I could tell you about 3 calls this weekend. One deal with a murder for hire, a child abduction, and what was the other one? That was just this weekend. Those are the people that are coming to misdemeanor probation.
Right.
And it's no fault to anybody's. It's just what happened. We were closed down for a couple of years. And, that's where I want to kind of reiterate with the officers. We took 2 months in the very beginning to get our feet underneath us.
Yeah.
But for the entire time, we've been in the field. We've been changed how we did our practices. We started meeting with probationers out front. And then, we've continued on with the probation. And we've been fully staffed for 3 years with our officers. I think that's a credit to the, officers and where they come from. I love one of the few departments probably that can say that. Pretty proud of them. They've
How
done
big
a
is your
great
staff?
job.
How many people?
There's 12 in our department.
How many openings?
None.
Okay.
We haven't had, a couple of the front desk has switched a couple of times this front year, but our officers have been steady for, the last 3 years, approximately 3 years. And getting them up and training and getting them up and running and stuff like that. I'm pretty proud of them. And they've fought through this whole thing and they've done a great job. But now the people that are coming to probation or that have to come, because there was no court.
Yeah.
They're on dual probation, or we're just getting on, that level. So you just say just misdemeanor, but if you see the calls that we're getting and the numbers that we're going, upwards now, so.
Okay, so basically, we're good pending the wage study.
So, yeah, so on June 14th, we can bring this back up.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you for your time. Thank you, Commission. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Shit, I went 13 minutes, sorry. Thank you.
Second item, Resource Management Office Fiscal 23 Budget Review. Jody, go right ahead.
So the RMO's increase is flat. There's not going to be any change from fiscal 22 to fiscal 23. I want to point out that HPC is asking for an additional $8,635, which Courtney Beebe's here, as other members of the HPC are here to address any of those questions. And the museum is asking for an additional $10,000, and again, Britt is here and can address the museum. So I'll pause for questions on this particular budget item operating.
Okay, so your second item, you're coming in flat.
I'm coming in flat.
Phil, Leslie, any questions?
I don't think so at this point.
Okay. That was too easy.
Well, I do have the personnel
And you're working through that right now.
Yeah.
correct, and I
Yep.
just want to point that out, that also is in your packet, that would be a net zero to the county, so that would be funded by.
Because that's grant funded,
Correct.
and that's the 43,000.
Correct in terms of that number that you see in for fiscal 23.
Right. So, yeah, so we'll be addressing that as we gather information. Yep.
Okay. All right. So we'll be taking that up in June, is that it?
We can, but we may be sooner than that,
Okay.
so.
Good enough. Okay, so what was the next one was HPC?
Yes, please. They're requesting an additional $8,635. Their current budget is at $1,900, and they're looking for an additional $8,635, and I'll let Courtney speak to the details of that if she'd like to come up. You have an item in your packet in case you want to reference it.
Thank you, Commissioners. Courtney
page.
Beebe, the Chair of the Kootenai County HPC. So we did provide for you, and on the back, you'll see there is a handy spreadsheet sheet for you of how we'd expend the funds. So you not only have your line item, but you should have.
I have that.
Okay.
But
I have
you're not
a-
showing me that.
I have another
Okay.
item I've passed on to Jonathan
Okay.
that I can supply for you as well. But it is a breakdown of not only the line items, but how we would expend that additional funds. These are items that if you reviewed our minutes, we've identified very specific projects that we already have ongoing, as well as grant funds that have already been allotted. So these would support things that are not something that we're planning on doing, but things that we're already doing. I would like to point out that the purpose of this is to enhance our outreach and collaboration with the nonprofits of Kootenai County, meaning the historical societies in some of the regions. We would like to provide some discretionary financial support to them. For example, one of the items is helping the Post Falls Historical Society list the Museum Chapin building on the National Registry. We have some other items that we've identified as well, including some grant money that's upcoming for the Historic Preservation Plan that will inform the comprehensive plan for the county. We would note that over the years, we have funded and expended exclusively grant money. So that's the only money that we leverage for projects. You'll see over time that we don't expend our county budget generally. However, this year, a county contribution would allow us to apply for some additional grants that would require matching funds. And we could also complete some of our additional projects. So for example, we just finished, or we're finishing, the survey of Cougar Gulch. We've done that exclusively with grant money. However, we're looking at listing that as potentially a historic district or doing some individual property listings. We may not have grant funds available for that. We'd also like to enhance our ability to communicate and manage information between our contractors and county personnel. So we share files that include large GIS maps, photographs, significant scan data. It's extremely difficult to do without having cloud storage or external drives, particularly working with some of our county IT policies. So we would be really focusing on that. Also, we're all, if I may highlight my companions here, Russ Brown, Walter Burns, and Lori Mauser, we're all trained individuals who work in this field. So we can do a lot of the actual field work without expending county funds, but we need some items to do that, like a digital camera, a portable scanner, potentially a recorder. We've identified some significant oral histories that would benefit the county as we grow. And we could use that information if we have a way to capture it. So those are the kinds of items that we're looking at. You'll see on the screen here, that's our breakdown. The Historic Preservation Plan, I would also highlight that we'll be holding community events and community outreach. This is an opportunity for our community to tell us what they'd like us to do. To do that, we're going to need to do some advertising, some printing, some mailing, and some more collaboration with the outer regions like Rose Lake, Spirit Lake, the city of Athol. So that's going to take us above and beyond our budget as well. And I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Courtney? You know, it's interesting when you look at the individual items, they're not that much. It's how they add up. Your current budget, we currently fund you to, what is it, just under $2,000? Is that it?
It's $1,900 a year.
How long have we been there?
I couldn't answer that question, but as long as I've been on the
Maybe
commission.
For quite a long time, I want to just point out that I know that Courtney just highlighted the time and effort of the HPC, but I have to just commend them. It's extensive. So for example, the projects that she was listing off, that requires 50-50 match. And in some cases, Lori Mauser has put in so much that we weren't even needing the match other than her time. And I just want to point out that they're very dedicated. These are really important projects. And I just want to point out they're not afraid to make the contribution, whether it's Walter or others. It's just really an amazing group of individuals that I personally have had the privilege of being associated with, and the amount of time and effort they put in things. And to me, the $8,635 addition is not asking much if you compare it to the expertise that's coming to the county. That's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
And I'd also like to highlight that Jody guides us so that we can do our work and meet our grant timelines, which, by the way, we meet. We meet them consistently, maybe with a month extension here and there, but our contractors meet them, and they meet them because Lori, myself, Walter, John Mueller, all the members contribute so much time that we're actually matching our contractors' time. And we're not getting paid. Of course, this is our volunteer effort. We would just like to maybe have some additional resources available to us as we do that.
In the past, has the funding been an impediment to your being able to leverage grant funds?
You know, it would increase our ability to request. So, for example, our historic preservation plan, we requested a $15,000 grant. We got that. It's going to be tight to get a contractor who will perform for that cost, not to mention our 50-50 match. So we will be performing at least that much work as well. We could have asked for more if we had had maybe another $3,000 or $4,000 to match the contractor.
Thank you. Thoughts?
I can't really do anything until we know where we're at with the wage study. I mean, this is all great programs, but once again, if we're talking mandated services and we don't have any other, Aquifer Protection District is an actual policy and budget committee, so we don't have any other advisory boards who have money. And I really, if I were to approve things, I would go line by line. I'm not in favor of giving money to other organizations. So they can apply to us, the commissioners, but I don't think an advisory board should be giving money to other entities. And like I said, Aquifer Protection District is different. They are guided by statute. That is what they are supposed to do, if that makes sense. So.
And I do appreciate the identification of some discretionary financial support. So the way that we've seen discretionary financial support is training and education materials, collection care, certainly not just giving them money and saying, have a good time. Also, I think I've been in here once or twice before, and what we do is nothing but building goodwill for the citizens of this community. So we do operate under a statute as well, but our goal is to enhance our civic pride and promote goodwill. And so far, I think that we've been able to do that for the benefit of not just our elected officials, but our citizens as well. We had 2 citizens who came in this week and asked for our assistance regarding the Dalton Canal out by Hayden Lake. So these are ways for us to, regardless of basically any other factor, assist people in taking pride in their community.
Have you tried to go out for private donations?
No, we don't solicit private donations. The historic societies and the museum, they solicit their own private donations as nonprofits. We seek simply the county funds and our grant applications.
I think what potentially sets you apart from other advisory boards, the Aquifer Protection District notwithstanding, is that you folks are contributing a lot of your own time. And clearly people do that with the other advisory boards, but yours is probably more hands-on than theirs is. You know, they'll meet periodically, but in terms of the actual work that they put in or leveraging their time for grants, it's minimal, and I think that's what sets you apart. I don't necessarily have a problem with this, but then I don't have a philosophical issue with non-mandated services as long as they're kept in check. For example, this year our non-mandated were $300,000, but that's on a $108 million budget. So that's like less than, 0.3%. So I don't have a philosophical issue with that, Bill.
I don't have philosophical problem with that, but I do with giving the money that you're granted to somebody else. Of all my years in nonprofits, that was always a big no-no. When we come in and ask somebody for money and they say, what are you gonna do with it? We're gonna give it to somebody else. Well, if we wanted them to have it, we give it to them directly. So that's my only, but I think the amount is not, by comparison is,
And certainly, we talked about that very thing within our own group, and talking about how we could do grants or some way of putting a check and balance on that. And frankly, we became uncomfortable with giving people money as well. But what we are in favor of is, say, providing a contractor to go give them a tutorial on caring for a collection, providing educational materials, or we have an idea right now of having a local historian trained to do oral histories. That's something that does require specific training. So those kinds of things would be how we would fund our discretionary financial support to them. We would not write them a check, and we certainly don't have any internal mechanism for granting them any funds.
Okay, so I think where we're leaving this, if I understand correctly, is take a look at the wage study and then take this up in conjunction with that. Is that first statement?
Nope, Jody's is more of the wage thing. This doesn't have anything to do with
This is separate,
wages.
so
Yeah.
this is absolutely separate. And just to dovetail off of what Courtney has said, there are grants available, and it's true that match is always been by the HPC, and they've done an outstanding job above and beyond, and I want to say always beyond, and I mean that with all my heart. I've worked with them for a long time. They're not short on making the contributions or taking money out of their own pocket. I just want to clarify, because I think there may have been a misunderstanding. I don't believe the money that they're having here is to give to anyone else, but there are consultants that are required, there's a level of expertise that's required. So on the plan that she was speaking to, the law requires a specific person. As you know, they have to have specific skill. So I think that there may be a misunderstanding that it's not that they're going to be given, but the consultant requirements for a particular project would have to be funded, and right now it's through grants.
Well, I heard her mention Post Falls, but then she further explained that the Post Falls Historical Society would be through educational materials and not just,
Correct. She did mention.
Pass through.
She did mention Post Falls, but unfortunately, Post Falls doesn't have a CLG. So really what it is Kootenai County is the umbrella. So when they have something that they want to come forward, Post Falls would contact Courtney and the HPC, and they would say, we have this opportunity, we would like to do this, the mayor has approved
Jody,
it.
define CLG.
Okay, it's.
Well, no, you just
Oh,
basically,
yeah,
what is
Certified local government.
Thank you, it took me a minute.
Yeah,
certified local government?
right.
Correct.
So we are a certified local government through the Idaho State Historic Preservation Office.
So let me clarify something. When I talked about the wage study, I wasn't linking wages to this. What I was trying to say is that because we're taking an aggressive posture toward wage increases,
understand.
I'm trying to put this aside and say, okay, look, we've got people we need to pay. I think we lost, what was the figure?
15
people
in
this
the
week.
last week.
I just
Okay.
lost somebody today, so yes, I understand.
And 97 openings. So I'm saying is, if we're going to address that,
Yes.
then we can, once we can make a reasonable determination with that, we can look at the non-mandated services. I don't have a problem with the figure. I really don't. But I want to look at it in the broader context.
Sure, I think they understand.
Yeah. And we do appreciate your consideration of this. This is the first time I think we've come in and actually asked for an increase in budget
Yeah.
in a long time. And again, I just want to emphasize, we do have a plan for this. We do have a structure for this, and we're not asking for our time to be compensated, but we would like to be able to use our time effectively.
You know, and as everything else, or as in every other request, it's a vote. And it's a vote of 2 out of 3, so.
So now the other item would be the.
Courtney, thank you.
museum.
Good job, guys.
you.
Thank you very much. This
Thank
is
you very
probably the
much.
most detailed we've had.
And Jonathan, can I get a printout of that? Thank you.
So this is Museum of North Idaho. Britt Thurman, you probably know who she is. And so the request is an additional $10,000, and I'll let her speak to the detail. You do have the sheet that she has in front of her. Okay.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all today. So the Museum of North Idaho is currently in its 54th year of operation, and since the 1970s, we've been receiving county financial support in some amount, and so we're appreciative. It's an integral part to our operations budget. Last year, we did come to talk about wanting to hire a new educations manager to be able to offer more programs to K through 12, and we were actually able to hire that position. And once that position has started, we've increased the number of programs and the number of students that we've seen. And that was given when a lot of field trips still were not occurring last year. We've been doing outreach as well as virtual options to do that. This year, we're asking for an increase of $10,000 for operation support again. With the inflation that's been going on, all of our costs have been going up quite rapidly. We also need to pay a lot of attention to our collections. We have an off-site storage building where we house the majority of our textiles collection and our large collections, those larger artifacts, and they're currently not being stored in a way that is optimal for preservation. So we're looking at applying for some grants as well, but as was said, those grants all require matching funds. So we're now just trying to collect those matching funds so we'll be eligible for those grants to be able to better preserve and care for those artifacts.
Okay, so Britt, you were just awarded, congratulations, by the way, $10,000 from the state?
Correct. It was a joint from the Idaho State Historical Society and the Idaho Humanities Council, and that was $10,000 that went for our capital campaign because we're currently raising about $5 million to build the new museum.
Would that not then satisfy this request?
The $10,000, because it's restricted to the capital campaign, it can't be used as a grant match for operations.
Okay. Questions for Britt?
That was easy, thank you.
Thanks.
We haven't approved anything.
Yeah,
I know.
Okay, just making sure.
but we haven't had any questions either, so I'm glad you explained that, though. Thank you. That it? I guess we can call for public comment? Nothing? 4:33. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.